What I want to do is, first of all, introduce myself. For those of you who haven't seen me on the stage next door, my name is Sanjay Shiroli. I'm the co-convener for TiEcon 2013, and I want to welcome you all. The first part of my agenda right now is to thank all of the content team members who have put together this wonderful entrepreneurship track for us this year. So can the entrepreneurship track team members, the content team members, please come on stage. Sorry, I wish I had some music. I'd like to thank Vipin Jain, who's the VP of Product Management at the Nook division of Barnes & Nobles. He's one of our chairs. Thank you, Vipin. Ryan Floyd is he around?
Is he on his way?
He's on his way. So you'll see Ryan come in. Ryan Floyd, who is the managing director at Storm Ventures, is also a co-chair with Vipin. And then we have Atul Sharma and Sumant Kaul, both senior managers of advisory services at Ernst & Young.
Yes, thanks.
Advisors at Ernst & Young. Thank you very much for having this lovely show. And I'd like to now ask Vipin to introduce the next speaker. Thank you. Thank you all.
Good morning. Come on, you can do better. Good morning. There we go. So today is dedicated to entrepreneurship. And if entrepreneurs are the engine of our economic growth, he provides the fuel. If you have a startup and you have raised money, you probably know his firm. If you haven't raised money yet, you want to know him. In last 3 decades, his firm has helped 40,000 companies and currently has more than $9 billion in extended capital to them. 1 out of every 2 venture-backed tech company, from IT to telecom to life sciences to clean tech, is his customer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to invite Greg Becker, the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank, as a keynote speaker for the entrepreneurship track. Greg.
Great to see everybody out here, and it's a pleasure, a thrill for me to be speaking in front of all of you guys at the entrepreneurship track. As Vipin said, entrepreneurship and helping entrepreneurs figure out how they can be more successful is a really critical part of our business. And since the inception of TiEcon, Silicon Valley Bank has been a supporter, so TiEcon owes a fantastic job putting this on over the last many years. So what I'm going to talk about, just as an introduction to the entrepreneurship side, is two things. One, I'm going to talk about startups and why I'm optimistic about this environment that we're in, and why I'm excited about kind of what the outlook is. And the second part is I'm going to spend just a couple minutes talking about Silicon Valley Bank and what you may not know. A lot of you know us, but there's certain things my bet is that you don't know. So given what we do, given when we meet with investors, our investors, we're publicly traded, one of the questions that come up, and we hear the same thing from entrepreneurs, is there really that much excitement? Is there really a lot of attention with startups? And what are the challenges? And is there, quite honestly, one of the questions that comes up is there enough capital to fund all the startups that are out there? And this next slide is the slide that people always talk about. And I know it's in the back, it may be a little bit hard to read, but what this is venture capital. And you see the big bubble back in 2000, and you see the huge decline, but you got two things going on. One is the venture capitalists went from roughly 1,200 down to 400. Venture capital now is about $20 billion a year, and the challenge is that there is fewer dollars being raised. So the question ends up being, is there enough capital for startups? That's the questions that we get asked. And I would answer that this way. And in fact, I would argue that it's being asked the wrong way. It's not is there enough venture capital? The question should be, is there enough innovation capital? And this is how we describe innovation capital. And again, it may be a little bit difficult for you guys in the back to see, but what we look at is the whole pie. We look at the level of U.S. government support. We look at corporate R&D. And the reason I put corporate R&D in that category is that there are more partnerships going on not just corporate investment, but corporate partnerships in R&D than there ever has been. Corporate venture capital, and you guys are going to hear from some corporate venture capitalists, are incredibly active in the market. So the point is that although people talk about venture capital, that's just a piece of the puzzle. So that's one reason why I'm optimistic. There's a ton of innovation capital out in the market. The next reason that I'm optimistic is the fact that there is such an efficiency that's happening today that we've never experienced before. So when you think about efficiency, what do I mean by that? It's just easier to start up a startup. Whether it's outsourcing things, technology to Amazon services, whether it's what it costs to set up the business, how much technology costs today. The fact of the matter is, it is much, much, much easier to start a business today than it ever has been. The third reason that I'm optimistic is in the kind of upper right, and it's the fact that innovation is around us more than we ever have been. And I'll give you one data point on this. So my kids go to school, public school in Menlo Park, and if you were to go 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and you'd listen to these kids, the probability that the kids would be talking about either starting a business or doing something in the technology space, developing something, I would argue is almost zero. This past summer, my daughter was going from 6th grade to 7th grade, and one of her classmates actually set up an app development camp. Charged kids in the class $350 for a week-long, at their house, an application development camp, an app development camp, and had 30, 35 kids sign up for it. I don't believe there's another time in history where you'd see that sort of activity. And you think about innovation, it is the top of mind of so many people, so much more than we ever have. So I'm optimistic because innovation is the center of attention right now. The fourth reason, in the lower left, is the fact that corporates have to innovate. So for those people in the audience, and my guess is not many of you are working for larger companies, but that larger companies, I think, are more nervous now than ever about we have to figure out how to innovate, we've got to make acquisitions, we have to partner. We're going to get lost behind if we don't accelerate and we don't think about what's coming next. To me, my perspective is I'm optimistic about startups because corporates are demanding it. And more are being acquired at lower valuations. They're comfortable doing it earlier and earlier. That bodes well for startups. And the last part here is, and this is a big deal to me, is high-skilled immigration. We've been a big proponent of high-skilled immigration, whether it's start a visa program and those sort of things. And quite honestly, it's been a long time, and it didn't look like it was going to happen. I'm more optimistic today that it's going to happen and actually be a big deal of us attracting talent to the U.S. and allowing that talent to stay in the U.S. These are the main reasons why I'm optimistic about the startup market. Now, another reason is that we see it in our numbers, and what you can't see up here, but you can see basically the chart up and to the right. These are startups that we've added as clients from 2009 through what we were projecting this year, going from about 400 startups we're adding as new clients in the Bay Area to almost 900 startups in the Bay Area. Now, we're kind of keeping the quality consistent. So what it says to me is there's more high-quality startups being formed in Silicon Valley than we can recall. The optimism I have is actually showing in the number of startups that are being formed. Here's some other data points. For the last several years, we've actually done a startup poll. We polled 750 of our clients last year, and we asked them a series of questions. And it's really about, are they optimistic? What are they doing? Two data points. One, 87% of the companies, so of the 750 companies said, we're going to be hiring in 2013. 87%. The rest of the economy in the United States is struggling for job growth. Entrepreneurial-backed companies, startups, 87% of them are going to be hiring. An incredible stat. And when you look at how optimistic they are, you can look at their 74% of them say that they're more optimistic about 2013. If you're looking for more information about what our startups are saying so that you have a perspective, just go to svb.com and we have all the data there from all that survey data to take a look at. But it's really fascinating. So I'm optimistic because startups are optimistic. The last point I want to make is this, and I spend a lot of time going around the country and meeting with CEOs, startup CEOs, that we have 28 offices around the US. So I'll have a group of 10 CEOs and we'll be sitting around, I'll ask them the question about what are the challenges you guys are dealing with, and usually inevitably it comes up that, you know, here's the 10 challenges, and gosh, there needs to be more venture capital in the market, there needs to be more capital. And what I remind them is this point: it's not supposed to be easy. If you're becoming an entrepreneur because you think it's going to be easy, but for the other reasons I said I'm optimistic, you're in the wrong space. It's supposed to be hard. So I'm going to give you one metaphor to think about. The reason I have this up here, this vineyard, is because one of the practices that we have, in addition to doing technology and life sciences, we bank about 275 high-end wineries in Napa and Sonoma, which is a really fun part of the business, by the way. And what's cool about that is I'm not a big wine person, but what it's about, when you find out what's great about the best wine, is that when you understand it, usually the story goes like this. The best grapes for the best wine come from soil that is the worst soil. It's rocky, it's nasty, and the reason it works is because they have to struggle so much to get the water, to get that perfect grape to become the perfect wine. So when you guys think about your startup and you guys are drinking your wine, complaining about how hard it is being a startup, just remember, it's not supposed to be easy. So another point for you guys, a piece of advice, is when you get a captive audience, make sure you always talk about what you do and what you're all about. So I'm going to take this opportunity to give you guys a little bit of information about Silicon Valley Bank, what you may not know. So here's one thing you may not know. So we do a lot of startups, and it's a key part of our growth engine, but we also work with companies from beginning, startup, all the way to large public companies. 67% of the companies, venture-backed companies that went public in the last 15 months, 67% were clients of Silicon Valley Bank. 67%. So we work with them from beginning, public, and beyond. The second thing, we're global. We have offices all over the United States, but we also have offices in emerging markets and markets that have been around a long time. So the UK, we were the first branch opened up in the last 7 years. We have offices in India. We have a joint venture in China, the first commercial bank joint venture in China. Entrepreneurship is everywhere, and we want to be part of that. We're more than just a transaction. And what I mean by that is this. The reason that you guys are here, and the reason that you're coming to this entrepreneurship track, from my standpoint, is that you want to learn, you want to be educated, you want to increase the probability of your success. That's what you guys are here for. So that's why you're at TiEcon, and that's the key part of what we do. We want to figure out how we can, on the lower right, we have a CEO summit, many CEO summits, where it's about giving these feedback and information and knowledge to entrepreneurs. On the upper left, it's a corporate venturing group. So what we did is, in one of our wineries up in Napa, we took 20 of the best corporate venturing groups and we partnered them up with 20 to 30 of the best startups. And we want them to work together. It was so successful that we actually had some of the corporates coming to us and saying, can you guys host those events for us? We've had Lego, we've had Qualcomm, we've had Shell come, and they want access to our startups, our innovation companies. And we're helping to facilitate those things. My point here is that you think about Silicon Valley Bank, you think about banking in general as a transaction. My point is, it's more than a transaction. And the last part is this. And no matter what banking products we talk about, no matter what our model is, it boils down to people. And I was talking with someone earlier who's a client of ours, and they said, you guys do a really good job of understanding the entrepreneur. And the point is, we're never going to be in your shoes. We're never going to fully understand what it's like to be a startup, to risk everything, to go into the startup mode. So the only thing we can do is try to do as much as we can to understand. So on the upper right, what you see is it looks like a TV studio. Well, it actually is a TV studio. We actually have one. Our headquarters is down the street. Every Monday, we bring all our employees together, all 1,700 across the world, and we talk about what we're up to, but we also have a little segment that talks about our clients and what they do. And what we want to do is get our employees exposed culturally to to what startups are doing, what it's like, so they really understand when they're taking care of clients, what they're going through and what they're dealing with. On the lower left, what looks like a rock concert, it actually is a rock concert. And for those people who've ever been up to the Fillmore up in the city, what we put on, along with some entrepreneurs and Mayfield Ventures, is a thing called The Voice. And what it was is we did a singing competition, just like The Voice, but we had it was all entrepreneurs could go. So all the entrepreneurs were up there, and it was a competition. We had 600 entrepreneurs and companies there, actually in the audience, and all the money went to charity. It's about the people, it's about doing different, and it's about helping support entrepreneurs, increasing the probability of their success. So I'm going to close with just a thank you. You guys are the ones that are taking the big risks. You guys are the ones that are doing different. You guys are the ones that, quite honestly, as Vipin said, you guys are the engine of the economy. So I want to thank all of you for what you guys do. I want to thank you guys for trying to do a better job, to be successful, to learn more, to increase that probability of success. And I've looked at the schedule today. It looks like you guys are in for a real treat. So thank all of you guys and enjoy the rest of the day.